The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as the Galaxy Council dispatched its armada, 9,700 vessels gleaming with authority and lethal intent. Their target, Earth, a blue and green jewel of a world, underestimated, dismissed, yet fiercely alive with a species that had survived worlds designed to annihilate it. The Council believed in numbers, in overwhelming firepower, in the certainty of bureaucratic superiority. They did not understand humanity. They had never faced a species that transformed survival into strategy, instinct into intellect, and morality into weaponized precision. From the outskirts of the solar system, human sensors caught the first glimmers of the incoming fleet. The reports cascaded through hidden stations and cloaked orbital platforms, triggering centuries of preparation. Massive warships, long hidden in nebulae, asteroid belts, and cloaked orbital corridors, stirred to life. They were more than vessels, they were instruments of inevitability, capable of bending the void itself to the will of their crews. Every pulse of energy, every maneuver, every drone deployment had been meticulously calculated to anticipate, counter, and dismantle the enemy before they could fully grasp what was happening. The flagship, immense and imposing, moved with a quiet authority that betrayed no haste, yet radiated undeniable purpose. Its hull glimmered with adaptive blue energy, bending sensors and light around it, cloaking its presence until the perfect moment. Streams of drones detached silently, ghost-like, infiltrating enemy systems, neutralizing engines, scrambling communications, and dismantling weapons with surgical precision. Gravitational distortions subtly redirected enemy fire into empty voids, forcing formations into chaos without a single human ship firing its primary cannons. Alien commanders aboard their colossal vessels assumed that their numbers would secure victory. They monitored the solar system's approach with smug confidence, unaware of the predators in the shadows, of the intelligence that could anticipate their every move. Their fleet was a glittering ocean of threat. But human strategy flowed between them like a tidal wave of inevitability, turning strength into weakness with elegant precision. From orbital colonies and distant planets, observers glimpsed the first flickers of impossibility. Alien ships faltered mid-course, engines sputtered, and energy arrays dimmed without explanation. The humans had arrived, not merely as defenders, but as arbiters of consequence. Their presence broadcast a simple truth across the void: humanity does not forgive attacks upon the innocent, and when provoked, it responds with intelligence, precision, and an unyielding moral force. The first engagements were almost imperceptible. A single alien cruiser stalled mid-flight, drones dismantling its engines with invisible finesse. Another faltered, weapons misfiring, communications severed, as if the ship had been swallowed by the void itself. Yet no human vessel had fired its main cannon. The battlefield was being rewritten not with destruction, but with inevitability. Every move, every calculated disruption, every subtle manipulation carried a message that resonated across the void: underestimate humanity at your peril. As the alien armada drew closer, the enormity of what awaited them became unavoidable. They had assumed victory by numbers, by bureaucracy, by the cold arithmetic of fleets. They did not account for intellect, for strategy born of survival against worlds that would kill any who failed, or for a species that wielded morality as both shield and weapon. The humans waited in silent precision, ready to transform the incoming tidal wave of threat into a tableau of inevitable reckoning, and in the deep, humming quiet of space, one immutable truth began to take hold across the solar system. The Earth had prepared, and the galaxy would remember. The alien armada, a spectacle of meticulously constructed vessels and lethal intent, advanced through the void with the confidence of a species that had never known defeat. 9,700 ships glimmered like a constellation of weapons, each bristling with energy arrays, kinetic projectiles, and automated defenses. Yet, as they approached Earth, the humans were already there, not in force that could be counted, but in strategy that could not be measured. Hidden fleets stirred in nebulae and asteroid belts, massive warships emerging like predators from the shadows. Every hull, every energy array, every drone was prepared not merely to fight, but to anticipate, to manipulate, and to convert threat into inevitability. the flagship of the Deathworlders' fleet moved with quiet majesty at the forefront, adaptive hulls shimmering in pale blue energy that bent sensors and light. Behind it, hundreds of vessels advanced in perfect synchronization, each anticipating the other's actions, each ready to strike at the precise moment that would unravel the alien armada. Ghost-like drones detached silently, slipping into enemy ships to dismantle engines, scramble communications, and neutralize weapon arrays with surgical efficiency. Entire formations faltered before realizing what had happened, a testament to the humans' mastery of prediction and control. From distant planets and orbital stations, observers glimpsed the unfolding spectacle. Alien ships sputtered and faltered mid-flight, energy beams misfired, engines collapsed, and formations dissolved into chaos. Awe and terror rippled through the observers' ranks. Humanity had arrived not merely as defenders but as arbiters of consequence, capable of shaping space, energy, and momentum to deliver outcomes that were unavoidable. Each disabled vessel broadcast the same silent, immutable message: attack the innocent, underestimate the humans, and face the consequences. Alien commanders, confident in the invincibility of their fleets, attempted to consolidate forces. Orders were shouted through failing communications, formations restructured, fire coordinated, but it was already too late. Engines faltered unpredictably, weapons arrays became unreliable, and drones infiltrated critical systems with surgical invisibility. The humans dictated the battlefield itself, transforming the void into a weapon, turning brute strength into vulnerability, and arrogance into catastrophe, even as the aliens' remnants struggled to respond. Human crews maintained careful restraint. Ships were disabled rather than destroyed, life preserved whenever possible, collateral damage minimized. Every incapacitated alien vessel carried a clear, unspoken lesson: cruelty and arrogance would be punished, but intelligence, strategy, and moral clarity would always prevail. The galaxy's most confident species now faced the unthinkable. They were not merely battling ships or weapons, but intellect perfected through adversity, strategy honed across worlds of death, and moral judgment rendered into action. The flagship advanced like a calm storm through the battlefield, energy pulses radiating outward to coordinate drones and fleets, dictating the rhythm of the engagement. Alien formations crumbled under invisible pressure, engines stalled, weapons fell silent, and command networks fractured. Human commanders observed every movement with unbroken focus, aware that victory was not the goal, it was inevitable, a consequence of foresight, strategy, and disciplined execution. As the alien armada faltered and scattered, drifting helplessly across the void, a single truth crystallized across the solar system and beyond: humanity had arrived, and the cost of underestimating them would echo across the stars for generations. Each pulse of energy, each precise strike, each gravitationally manipulated maneuver carried one unmistakable message: Earth's children are unstoppable, intelligent, and unyielding. And in the quiet between the distant hums of the fleet, a profound certainty settled across the Deathworlders: humanity does not forgive, humanity does not yield, and the galaxy will remember. The alien armada, once a glittering symbol of supremacy, now drifted toward Earth with an arrogance that had been meticulously cultivated over centuries. 9,700 vessels, each a marvel of engineering and lethality, moved as though the galaxy itself bent to their will. Yet they failed to account for a species that had survived worlds designed to destroy it, a species that had turned survival into strategy, instinct into intellect, and morality into a weapon of precision. Humanity did not merely prepare for war, they orchestrated inevitability. Hidden fleets stirred from nebulae, asteroid belts, and cloaked orbital corridors, colossal warships emerging from concealment like predators sensing the slightest tremor of prey. Each vessel radiated silent authority, adaptive hulls shimmering with blue energy that bent light and disrupted alien sensors. From the flagship to the outermost craft, every component, every drone, every system acted in concert, a single organism of strategy and foresight. Ghost-like drones detached in streams, slipping into alien ships to dismantle propulsion, neutralize weapons, and scramble communications, leaving commanders frantic and fleets paralyzed. Observers on distant planets and orbital stations watched with disbelief. Alien formations faltered mid-flight, engines sputtered, weapons misfired, entire command networks failed. Humanity had arrived not to fight blindly but to impose judgment. They had transformed the battlefield itself into a weapon, manipulating gravitational currents to redirect enemy fire, exploiting chaos to immobilize formations, and turning numerical superiority into irrelevance. Every disabled alien vessel broadcast the same unambiguous truth: underestimate humanity, violate the innocent, and the consequences will be absolute. Alien commanders scrambled desperately to restore order. They concentrated fire, attempted coordinated maneuvers, and issued rapid commands, but every effort was anticipated, every countermeasure countered. Engines failed unpredictably, weapons arrays shut down, and drones infiltrated critical systems before a single human ship had fired its primary weapon. The battlefield was no longer measured in fleet size or firepower, it was measured in intelligence, foresight, and the unshakable will of a species that had mastered survival itself. Even in total dominance, human crews exercised restraint. Ships were disabled rather than destroyed, civilian life preserved, and collateral damage minimized. The Deathworlders were not conquerors, they were enforcers of consequence, arbiters of justice, and masters of strategy. The galaxy's most confident and arrogant species now confronted an incomprehensible reality. They were facing not mere vessels, but intellect refined through adversity, strategy perfected in crucibles of survival, and moral clarity rendered into action. The flagship advanced like a calm storm through the void, energy pulses radiating outward to synchronize every drone, vessel, and maneuver. Alien formations dissolved under invisible forces, engines stalled, weapons fell silent, and command networks fractured. Human commanders maintained steady focus, knowing that victory was not a goal but an inevitable outcome, a consequence of precise calculation and the relentless application of intellect and moral purpose. As the last alien vessels drifted powerless, scattering helplessly across the void, one truth resonated across the galaxy: humanity had arrived, and any attempt to underestimate them would carry consequences beyond imagination. Every gravitationally manipulated trajectory, every disabling strike, every strategic maneuver carried the same unavoidable message: Earth's children are relentless, intelligent, and unyielding. And in the infinite silence that followed, a single thought echoed across every human vessel and observer alike: humanity does not forgive, humanity does not yield, and the stars will remember. The alien armada approached Earth with all the arrogance and confidence of a civilization that had never known defeat. 9,700 vessels, each a masterpiece of military engineering, gleamed against the void like an ocean of lethal intent. Yet they had miscalculated. They had never faced a species that transformed survival into strategy, instinct into intellect, and morality into a weapon of devastating precision. Humanity did not meet them with sheer numbers, but with inevitability, turning preparation, foresight, and ingenuity into instruments of absolute consequence. From the hidden edges of nebulae, behind asteroid belts, and from cloaked orbital corridors, human warships stirred to life. Colossal flagships pulsed with adaptive blue energy, bending light, masking their presence, and confounding alien sensors. Each vessel, from the smallest support craft to the largest dreadnought, moved as part of a living organism, synchronized, precise, and aware. Streams of drones detached silently, weaving between alien ships like ghostly threads, infiltrating engines, sabotaging weapons arrays, scrambling communications, and dismantling systems with surgical efficiency. Entire alien formations faltered before understanding that they had been outmaneuvered before a single human shot had been fired. Observers on distant worlds, hidden orbital stations, and planetary colonies glimpsed the first signs of the impossible. Alien cruisers stalled mid-flight, engines flickering, energy arrays dimming, weapon systems failing. Fear and awe rippled through civilians and soldiers alike. Humanity had arrived not merely as a defender but as a force of inevitability, shaping the battlefield itself into a weapon. Gravity wells and microwarp currents subtly redirected enemy fire into empty space, entire fleets became paralyzed under invisible pressures, and numerical superiority dissolved into chaos. Every disabled vessel broadcast the same message across the void: underestimate humans, attack the innocent, and suffer consequences of unrelenting precision. Alien commanders, realizing the precision and inevitability of their opponents, attempted to consolidate their forces. Orders were shouted through failing communication lines, energy volleys coordinated, formations adjusted, yet every attempt was anticipated, every countermeasure countered. Engines failed, weapons misfired, navigation systems collapsed. Humanity dictated not only the movement of its own vessels but the flow of the battlefield itself, bending space, momentum, and energy to enforce outcome. Arrogance became vulnerability, confidence became chaos, cruelty became failure. Even as total dominance became manifest, human crews exercised restraint. Vessels were disabled, not destroyed. Life was preserved wherever possible, collateral damage minimized. The Deathworlders were enforcers. Not conquerors, arbiters of consequence, wielders of strategy, and instruments of moral clarity. The galaxy's most arrogant species faced an unfathomable truth. They were battling not mere ships or technology, but intellect refined through centuries of survival, strategy perfected through adversity, and moral judgment rendered into action. Every pulse, every maneuver, every subtle disruption was a lesson written in the void. The innocent will be defended, the arrogant punished, and the inevitable will arrive. The flagship moved forward like a storm contained, energy pulses radiating outward to coordinate every vessel and drone, dictating the rhythm of engagement. Alien formations crumbled under invisible forces. Engines stalled, weapons fell silent, and command networks fractured. Human commanders observed every movement with unwavering focus, knowing victory was not a goal, it was inevitable, the consequence of foresight, discipline, and intelligence honed to perfection. As the last alien ships drifted powerless, scattered across the void, one truth crystallized for every observer: across every planetary colony and orbital station, humanity had arrived, and the cost of underestimating them would echo across the stars for generations. Every pulse of energy, every calculated strike, every gravitationally manipulated maneuver carried one indisputable message: Earth's children are relentless, intelligent, and unyielding. And in the quiet, humming expanse of space, a final thought resonated across all human vessels: humanity does not forgive, humanity does not forget, and the galaxy will remember. The alien armada, once a monument to power and hubris, now approached Earth with a fragile confidence born of arrogance. 9,700 ships, each engineered to perfection and bristling with lethal systems, gleamed against the void, yet they were blind to the truth. Humanity had survived worlds that would have annihilated any lesser species, a species that had converted survival into strategy, instinct into intellect, and morality into a weapon of absolute precision. The Deathworlders' fleet waited in patient inevitability, not with overwhelming numbers, but with calculations honed to perfection, ready to turn arrogance into ruin. From hidden nebulae, asteroid belts, and cloaked orbital corridors, colossal human warships emerged like predators sensing the slightest tremor of prey. Flagships pulsed with adaptive blue energy, bending light, confusing sensors, and masking their positions until the perfect moment. Behind them, every vessel moved as part of a single organism, anticipating, coordinating, and executing strategies before the alien commanders could even conceive of them. Ghost-like drones detached in streams, slipping into enemy vessels to dismantle engines, sabotage weapon arrays, and disrupt communications with surgical precision. Entire formations faltered, not from force, but from the invisible pressure of intellect and foresight. Observers across planets and orbital stations glimpsed flashes of impossibility. Alien ships sputtered, energy arrays dimmed, engines faltered mid-flight, and command networks fractured. Civilians and soldiers alike felt awe and fear. Humanity had arrived not merely as a defender but as a force capable of rewriting the rules of engagement itself. Gravity wells, manipulated energy flows, and calculated distortions turned enemy fire into empty void, neutralizing entire fleets without a single human cannon shot. Every disabled ship broadcast an immutable truth: underestimate humanity, attack the innocent, and the consequences will be absolute. Alien commanders, realizing their advantage was evaporating, attempted desperate consolidations. Coordinated volleys, concentrated energy beams, and synchronized maneuvers were launched with frantic precision. Yet every move was anticipated, countered before execution. Engines failed unpredictably, weapons arrays misfired, and drones infiltrated critical systems, turning technological mastery into vulnerability. Humanity controlled not only the flow of its own vessels but the battlefield itself, bending momentum, energy, and space to enforce inevitability. Arrogance dissolved into chaos, cruelty faltered against intellect, and confidence shattered under the relentless application of strategy. Even amidst total dominance, human crews exercised remarkable restraint. Ships were disabled rather than destroyed, civilian life preserved, and collateral damage minimized. The Deathworlders were not conquerors, they were enforcers, arbiters of consequence, wielders of strategy, and instruments of moral clarity. The galaxy's most assured species now confronted an incomprehensible reality. They were facing intellect perfected through adversity, strategy refined across worlds of death, and moral judgment rendered into action. Every pulse, every maneuver, every subtle manipulation carried a lesson for the arrogant. The innocent will be defended, violations punished, and inevitability enforced. The flagship advanced like a calm, controlled storm, energy pulses radiating outward to synchronize drones, vessels, and maneuvers. Alien formations dissolved under invisible forces, engines stalled, weapons fell silent, and command networks fractured completely. Human commanders observed with unwavering focus, knowing that victory was not a goal. It was the inevitable consequence of foresight, discipline, and intellect perfected over millennia. As the last alien vessels drifted powerless across the void, scattered and defeated, one truth resonated throughout the galaxy: humanity had arrived. And the cost of underestimating them would echo across star systems for generations. Every gravitationally manipulated trajectory, every precise disabling strike, every orchestrated maneuver carried one unavoidable message: Earth's children are relentless, intelligent, and unstoppable. And in the deep, silent hum of space, a single, unyielding thought echoed across every human vessel: humanity does not forgive, humanity does not yield, and the stars will remember. The wreckage of the alien invasion force drifted across the void like remnants of a nightmare scattered into silence. 9,700 ships had come with the confidence of a dominant empire, certain that Earth would be humbled before their might. Now only fragments and crippled hulls remained, suspended in the starflecked dark. Engines cold. Weapons offline. Command networks reduced to flickers of desperate static. And at the center of this quiet, drifting graveyard, humanity stood undefeated, silent not because they lacked words, but because the galaxy itself needed time to comprehend what had just occurred. Humanity did not celebrate. There were no cheers, no triumphant broadcasts, no gloating transmissions sent across the cosmos. The Deathworlder fleet hovered with calm precision around the immobilized enemy armada, their engines pulsing with controlled light, their hulls reflecting the glow of distant suns. Victory was a calculation completed. A necessary promise fulfilled, a message delivered not through destruction but through precision and restraint. They had shown mercy when none was deserved, discipline when rage would have been easier, and clarity when the galaxy expected barbarism. That restraint shook alien observers even more deeply than the battle itself. Across distant star systems, countless species watched in stunned disbelief as reports flooded in. Entire networks replayed sensor footage of human vessels weaving through enemy formations with geometric elegance, disabling ships instead of annihilating them, corralling thousands of vessels into safe dereliction rather than scattering debris across the void. Alien civilians stood frozen before screens as analysts whispered that humanity's true power was not firepower but comprehension, an understanding of war so complete that they could dictate its outcome without drowning it in blood. Wars were supposed to be chaos. Humans had turned this one into mathematics. On the alien flagship, the broken remnants of the command crew stared at their consoles, unable to reconcile their training with reality. Their shields had collapsed without detonations, their weapons had shut down without damage, and their engines had spun to dead silence as if obeying a higher directive. What force could disable an entire fleet without striking a single killing blow? What species had the audacity to wage war like a surgeon wields a scalpel? Their leaders, once arrogant, proud, unshakable, now trembled as a single human cruiser approached, slow and deliberate, carrying not weapons but an emissary of judgment. The human admiral appeared via light projection, calm, steady, and impossibly composed. There was no anger in their eyes, only purpose. The galaxy had attacked Earth with overwhelming force. Humanity had responded not with conquest but with demonstration. They delivered terms, not vengeance. Surrender protocols. Human-supervised recovery corridors. Medical teams prepared to treat even the invaders who had come to slaughter them. The alien commanders, shamed beyond language, accepted with voices barely above whispers. Mercy had never felt so heavy. Human support ships moved among enemy vessels like guardian spirits, stabilizing reactors, towing drifting hulls, patching ruptures in life support systems. They treated wounded enemies with the same care they offered their own. The galaxy watched, and fear deepened, not because humanity lacked cruelty, but because they rejected it. A species with the power to destroy 9,000 ships yet chose not to. What could they do if truly provoked? If ever pushed beyond mercy? What unimaginable force lay behind their restraint? As the last alien vessel was secured for escorted withdrawal, Earth's fleet turned as one, engines igniting in synchronized waves of blue light. They did not broadcast threats or warnings. They didn't need to. The silence they left behind was louder than any declaration. Across the galaxy, military doctrines were rewritten. Empires reconsidered their borders. Species that once mocked humanity now whispered their name with reverence and fear. The Deathworlders had rewritten the definition of war. Earth's fleet vanished into the folds of space, returning home not as conquerors but as protectors who had proven a universal truth. Humanity could not be threatened into submission, could not be cornered into surrender, and could not be erased by overwhelming force. They had endured worse on their own world. They had survived extinction-level trials long before reaching the stars. And now the galaxy understood that the children of Earth were the inheritors of the harshest cradle imaginable, born tough, forged thoughtful. And guided by an unwavering sense of responsibility, long after the last human engine signature faded, alien crews floated in the eerie quiet of their disabled ships, haunted not by human weapons but by human mercy. Mercy that burned hotter than any beam. Mercy that left a scar deeper than destruction. Mercy that proved humanity's strength came from choice, not fear. And when the Alien Council eventually convened to discuss reparations, treaties, and new interstellar laws, one truth hung heavy in every chamber: Earth had become not just a world, but a force of balance, dreaded, respected, and utterly unshakable, in the distance of folded space, in the gentle hum of hyperspace corridors leading home. A single thought drifted across every human vessel with quiet certainty: the galaxy will think twice before crossing Earth again.